Welcome to the Breakup Recovery Podcasts by your host, Barbara Stevens. Discover the wisdom and remarkable insights of Barbara Stevens, breakup recovery mentor, author, and public speaker. Barbara offers programs and solutions for any breakup so you can turn your life around, create lasting changes for the better, and embrace life again.
Hello and welcome to Breakup Recovery Podcast. I'm Barbara Stevens and I'm a breakup recovery mentor. And in this episode, I welcome back Honoree. The last time Honoree was on Breakup Recovery Podcast, we didn't get the time to talk about the other books she has written, and they are The Successful Single Mum, which is a 6-book series, and The Successful Single Dad. Now, I probably say the word mom wrong because in Australia we pronounce it mum, M-U-M, and I know in America you pronounce it mom. So I'll try and get that right, Honoree. So welcome back.
Well, thanks for having me. I think however you say it is fine with me. It sounds great.
Thank you. Tell me more about the Successful Single Mom book and what each of the 6 books in the series has to offer people.
Sure. So the Successful Single Mom book was originally written, I was inspired watching an Oprah Winfrey show where she was doing a makeover. And I always love the makeover shows, right? Because they bring out someone and they look as pathetic as possible. And the woman, when she was being introduced with her transformation, was introduced as someone who was a single mom. And Oprah interjected something to the effect of, oh, of course she's a schlimpadinka. She's a single mom. Of course she's a hot mess, right? She's got oversized clothes and her hair is frizzy and she's taking care of everyone but herself. And I thought to myself, well, that's an interesting viewpoint on single moms and single mums. And I don't think that necessarily has to be true. And so I went and looked for a book that was a guiding light or a beacon of hope for single moms, and I couldn't find it. And I had just come to the end of my single mom journey. I was getting remarried after several years and decided to write a book that would be that hope and formula for success for single moms. And so then, not long after that, in the process of writing that book, I worked with a group of single moms. I have a coaching program that's 100 days long from when I was an executive coach, and I customized that to be a 100-day coaching program for single moms. And then I had single moms apply for the coaching, and then I worked with them to write the full content of the book. And in the process of writing the first book, it became apparent that single moms seem to have the same challenges in common. So the second book in the series is this Successful Single Mom Cookbook, which is on your table in 20 minutes or less, 7 ingredients or less, healthy, give or take, right? The level of healthy is sometimes a little negligible. But the point is, it was one of the areas where I felt like I was falling down because I was getting up at 3 or 4 in the morning to work, and I was working until 10 or 11 o'clock at night and working all day when my daughter was in school. And lo and behold, every day she would come home and want something for dinner. And I was on this repeat meal of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or beans and wieners. And in the morning, I was making the same breakfast, and I wanted to feel like I wasn't failing her in the food department. So I worked with someone who was a food writer and a chef, and we wrote that book together. And then I realized that the other challenges that single moms were having were finding love again, working on their finances and having some financial independence, feeling like they had time to work out, get fit, and feel better. And finally, for those single moms who didn't have all of the education they wanted, specifically advanced education, so a college degree or a technical degree, I wrote books for each of those challenges. So I wrote The Successful Single Mom Finds Love as I was celebrating my first couple of years of marriage, and The Successful Single Mom Gets Rich, and The Successful Single Mom Gets Fit, and finally The Successful Single Mom Gets an Education. So all 6 books in the series are meant to address each of the main challenges that I felt like I had as a single mom and solved, and that I saw other single moms having as well.
So I guess the books are essentially how-to guides, how to get your groove back, how to find happiness, how to, get rich. What's the feedback you've had from the books, Honoree?
I get an email about every day or two from a single mom who has transformed her life by following the advice that I shared in the book. And so the feedback has been really humbling and great. I am so grateful. I actually put the books all together into what is called a box set, which is ironic because it's all digital, but all 6 books are available on Amazon as just one set if somebody wants all of them. And that is the best-selling book out of all of them, because I think some people just go, I will take all of it.
And they're easy reads?
They are easy reads. I write like I talk. So I write like I'm having a conversation with my younger self or with a single mom that I've had a conversation with.
It's an easy way to consume a book, isn't it, if you feel like someone's actually having a conversation with you rather than lecturing you or telling you what to do.
Yes, well, I think that it is okay to use big words and to be highfalutin, but I find that the way that I connect with people is to just write as though I'm talking to them, as though I'm giving them advice one-on-one. And that's that's the feedback I'm given about in all of my books, is that people feel like they're having a conversation with me, especially if they hear me on a podcast or in an interview of some kind. They feel like they've just extended that conversation in their head through the book that they're reading.
If you could give just one piece of advice from one of your books, what would it be?
Well, I think the piece of advice, it would probably be most prominent in The Successful Single Mom Finds Love, but it is a piece of advice that is woven through all of the books, which is, in order to be successful, there are a couple of things that have to happen. One is you have to make it easy to feel like you're succeeding and hard to feel like you're failing. As a mom, it's very easy to feel like you're failing. Like, oh, I'm making eggs every day for my kid for breakfast. I must be a failure. So how about turning that into, I fed my kid today. I fed them breakfast. They're going to be just fine. And the underlying message to making it easy to feel like you're succeeding and hard to feel like you're failing is that you love yourself, that you love and accept yourself as you are, and everyone is a work in progress. And so as you know better, you'll do better. But wherever you are right now today, you are just wonderful, just as you are. And if you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I love you, I think you're a wonderful human being, and I'm glad that I'm the person I'm on this journey with myself, that is a really good place to start. And I say that only because I wasn't able to do that for a really long time. I had to do a lot of work on that for myself. And then when I worked with the single moms to write the Successful Single Mom book, that was the thing they had to get to. That was the piece of advice that shifted everything else, because until you love yourself, you're not going to be financially responsible. You're not going to carve out time to go to the gym or do yoga or practice meditation. You're not going to attract the man who is going to love you as much as you love yourself and your children. Does all that make sense?
Yes, self-love and self-acceptance of where you are right now is so important. And you're right, if you don't have that, how can you move forward?
Yes, if you don't have that, then you won't take the action on the other things. You won't believe that you deserve the love, the fitness, the financial security, the education. And what's interesting is I saw a post on Facebook about a gentleman who went over to his ex-wife's house on her birthday and helped their two kids make breakfast, and he brought flowers and a present. And someone asked him, why are you doing that? And he said, because I am an example to my children of how they should behave and how they should be treated.
And that also brings me into the subject. I know that in this podcast that men do listen. And can you tell me about the Successful Single Dad book? And do the same principles apply to men as it does to women?
Oh, absolutely. 1,000%. So hi, guys that are listening. I'm so excited that you're listening. I wrote the Successful Single Dad book because there were a lot of single dads I was meeting in my travels to talk about the Successful Single Mom book, and they would say, I read the book, I pretended that it was pink instead of blue, and I really appreciated the read. And I was encouraged to write the Successful Single Dad book by several male attorneys who were wishing that there was a book that they could give their single dad clients. The principles in the books are exactly the same. As a matter of fact, the books are identical, except where I have the single mom stories, I interviewed single dads and put their stories in the book to replace the single mom stories. So the two books, the content of the books is identical, virtually identical. It's just the stories that are different.
So more men can relate to other men's stories.
Correct. Yeah, I went and found single dads that were rocking the Casbah, that were amazing single fathers and were making decisions about their physical bodies, their career paths and professions, and their relationships, and how they were modeling how to behave for their kids, and interviewed them for the book. And it's very interesting because when I said, gosh, I need the man's version of this book, how do I create it? Where am I going to find single dads? All of a sudden, there they all were. Like, they just kind of crossed my path, and interviewing all these single dads. I'm very happily married and for 9 years, remarried, and my husband is wonderful. But when I was interviewing all these guys, I was like, well, where were you when I was single? Like, it's amazing. You do exist. And so it was really an eye-opener for me that there are a lot of men out there that are really taking being dads seriously, even as their marriages or relationships aren't lasting as long as obviously we all intended that when we created a child with someone in the spirit of love and connection, that we would be with them forever. But even as those relationships don't last, that they were still even more committed to their children, which is very wonderful to see. And single moms too, they take their relationships with their kids very seriously.
Honoree, do you find that men think differently to women or approach finding happiness in a different way that women approach finding happiness?
I think men and women are wired very differently, but I think underneath it all, we have two things that are important. We want to be enough and we want to be loved. And I think that that's universal. It doesn't depend upon gender, but I think the approaches are different. And I think the wiring is different. I think how we're wired is completely different, and understanding that and realizing that and recognizing that and working with that is important for everybody.
So what do you think the main difference between the way women try and find happiness after a breakup and the way men try and find happiness or get back on track after a breakup?
You know what? I don't think it's so different. What's interesting is I find myself giving the same advice to men and women. Right after a breakup, there seems to be, and I have this myself, there seems to be a theme that's recurring that goes something like, I've just broken up with this person, but I'm fine. And now I'm on Tinder, and now I'm on Match. And I found someone wonderful, and I think they're the one. And I'm like, okay, hold on. We need to have a little time for self-reflection, and there needs to be some time that passes. You need to have a period where you are 100% single, so the divorce is final and the ink is dry on the papers. And then there needs to be, what I have been told multiple times from multiple professionals, a good 2 years where you just kind of sit with it and you figure out who you are now and what your new vision is, and designing your new vision for your future. And I can say I honestly was the first person to say, after about 15 minutes, oh, I wasn't happy anyway. I'm totally fine. And I wasn't short on male attention and interest. And so it was very tempting to just think that next relationship was appropriate. So I don't know that there's a difference between how men and women go after happiness. I just think men and women are wired differently in how they communicate and what their expectations are and what their needs and desires are. And I think that's where there is sometimes a disconnect. But I think at the end of the day, both men and women want to feel like they are validated. And there is nothing more humbling and more invalidating than what feels like the ultimate failure, which is the end of a marriage or a significant relationship.
Definitely. If people want to find out more about you and what you offer, Where can they find this information, Honoree?
Well, all of my books are available on Amazon. I welcome an email from anyone, honoree@honoreecorder.com. And then, of course, my website is honoreecorder.com. And specifically, honoreecorder.com/divorce or honoreecorder.com/single moms or single dads.
Thank you, Honoree, for coming back to Breakup Recovery podcast and sharing everything that you have to offer in terms of the single mum books and the single dad. I think you offered some great advice and some perspectives that people can think about and take away with them to help them get through and over their breakup. So thank you once again, Honoree.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I hope this episode number 088, How to Be a Successful Mom and Dad After Your Breakup with Honoree Corder, has been helpful in some way. I've put the contact details for Honoree in the summary of this episode. However, if you are still struggling to get over your breakup and feel that you need some assistance and would possibly like to work with me one-on-one, then contact me via my website, barbarastevens.com.au, or message me on my Facebook page, Barbara Stevens Breakup Recovery Mentor. If you found some value from this episode and know someone else who would also find Breakup Recovery podcasts helpful, then please share this podcast with them. All the episodes are on my website, iTunes, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. Listeners have asked how they can help support the podcast, and Patreon is one way to help. So if you think this show is worth $1 every episode or $1 every month, and you feel that you can afford that amount, I am grateful for any amount of money you pledge, because every little bit helps. Why not head over to my Patreon page and take a look? The link to that would be www.patreon.com/Breakup Recovery. No contribution is too small, and I appreciate your support so that I can improve Breakup Recovery podcast. If you have any questions or suggestions or just want to email me, then all my details are on my website. And the last thing I'd like to say is, be gentle on yourself. You deserve happiness.
If you would like to hear previous Breakup Recovery podcasts, visit barbarastevens.com.au. Connect with Barbara Stevens on social media with Barbara Stevens Breakup Recovery Mentor on Facebook and at You'll Be Okay on Twitter. Read further blogs, view webinar replays, and download your free ebook, 3 Easy Steps to Surviving Your Breakup, and much more at barbarastevens.com.au.